Yeah, that fit is. I don't know, bro. That fit ain't. It ain't. I don't know what it's not giving, but it ain't. It's not giving a lot of things.
It's been a year with the podcast.
I don't know if it's giving
at this point.
experienced podcast host.
I'm just saying, bro. After a year, at this point, I can just get comfortable, right?
If that's what you want to say, yeah. I don't know. I'm gonna have to let the people decide on what's up with this. I mean, that's the thing. Like, I remember I was talking to somebody actually last week that I was with, and they're older, like a family friend. They're older, and they stay just joking on my, not even joking on my face, but every time I have something on, they'll make a comment on my fit. And this person's like 40 or 50 or something like that. So like, you know, they're a little far removed from the culture. Just to paint a picture. And yeah, they always saying something about what I got on, and I'm just like, bro,
maybe it's not that they're far removed from culture, but that you're far removed from style. You know what I'm saying? Maybe that's what it is, bro.
For real. Like, I'm serious. Every time they got something to say, like anytime I got a fit, like I already know they're gonna say something. Like if I wear them one slides, I like look like the Yeezy slides.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
And they don't like Kanye either. They think his style's whack. And I'm like, well, like
maybe they are just removed.
They're a little far removed.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah, man. And so I remember they stay making comments about like, yeah, sometimes I'll look on YouTube because I watch the podcast and I'll be like, man, no, they could dress a little better. I'm like, yo, they can only see us from like the waist up.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
this fit don't match right now, even from the waist up. But it's just like I said, man, it's just at this point I'm just trying to be open and transparent with y'all.
Oh, so that's what it is. And I feel like this is the brand though. It's kind of like, you know, the just, chill, laid back.
It's just low key. Like,
yeah,
just talking like nothing crazy.
Yeah, but that.
Okay, bro.
That's in. Come on,
you
go ahead.
You have to say that.
Stand up, so they can see what you got on.
Bro, it's not.
Y'all can't tell me the gray on gray is not nuts. And if y'all could see,
the gray slides.
If y'all could see the slides you got on, those are our dad's slides. I ain't know where those are yours.
Oh my gosh, I bought them at Ross, bro. They was 50% off.
They look like a size 13.
They a little big.
You wear it.
They're a couple, bro. But it was like the price was so good, I couldn't pass on it. It's a couple sizes too big.
I got you.
Plus, I ain't worn this hat in a while. I feel different with it on.
I got you.
This is Disney hat starts.
Yeah, y'all let us know how y'all feel about the fit though. Actually, yeah, I don't know how I feel about it. He walked
Rate it in the comments.
To change the shirt. But anyways, man, you ready?
Let's get it.
All right, we're gonna get straight into it. It's your boy D Starks.
Starks artist.
You are now tuned in to the Just Different podcast, where we talk everything faith, life, and culture.
Culture, man.
We're here. It's another week, another EP, another conversation coming at you. What's episode? It's got to be 5-3.
Yeah. 53.
5-3, coming off the year mark last week.
Yeah.
How you feeling? You good?
I'm feeling great. Like I said, I just feel like this is symbolic. This fits symbolic because it's been after the year. So I'm just letting y'all know that I'm really getting comfortable with y'all. So I'm feeling good. Actually.
Also, you just open it up to the people.
Yeah, how you feeling?
I'm great, man. I'm blessed and highly favored.
Amen.
Nah, but we had a long intro last week, so we're gonna get straight into it now.
Let's go.
So look, y'all. Whenever we put anything on Instagram, or at least like a poll up on Instagram, like we're like, yo, ask us a question.
Yeah.
One of the biggest questions that we always get is always surrounded around like how to stay true to self. So it'd always be, I guess, surrounded by maybe they're a freshman going into college, freshman going into high school, or going into some type of environment where they know what they're about to step into goes against what they believe.
Yeah.
And it's usually surrounded by, yo, can I get advice on how to stay like solidified and steadfast in my faith, in my belief in God, and my morals, and what I stand on in environments that essentially go against everything that I believe.
Right.
And so I was like, it's low key long overdue for us to do an episode and have a conversation about it.
I feel like that question a lot.
No, of course. And I feel like we've, I guess we've talked about it just here and there, you know, like brief snippets, just in like the flow of conversation, but actually have an episode on it, what that looks like. To overcome that and get through that we haven't done. So I'm excited for this episode. And this is also a universal thing. So this won't necessarily be just surrounded by if you're going into college or going into high school. This is just going to be really about, yo, how do you stay true to like your principles, who you know you are and who you want yourself to be when you got everything around you pushing you away from that, right? Temptations here, desires there, like offers here. What does that look like? And, you know, how do you do that consistently so you can just stand firm? And for me, and I guess we'll just start here, one of the things that I had an issue with, or one of my biggest issues is, especially going into college, I guess maybe not out of a sense of pride or arrogance per se, but I just had underestimated the temptation that I would face going into like the environment I was about to step into, right? Because of course everyone was telling me, oh yeah, like, you know, make sure you keep your head on straight,
Right.
you know, you stay true. And I'm like, what y'all talking about? Like, it's cool. Yeah, like I'm gonna be cool. Like, and it was, in my mind, it was like, this isn't something I haven't seen before. So yeah, I guess I was a bit too conceited with where I was at in that moment, because like in high school I was like, well, I never went out, I never drank, never smoked, and up until that point, like I hadn't had sex or anything. So it was just like, I mean, I've done this for the past 4 years already. So you just, like, I mean, what is this? How bad can it get? Like, how worse can it get? Of course, like, yeah, like I've seen this, and you know, although the spirit is willing, we also have to know that the flesh is so weak. Like our big sis Lex said, she said, this flesh is raggedy.
Bro, for real.
It's so raggedy. Like, and so even though like you have the heart of good intention, we always have to be very aware of a flesh that wants us to indulge desires that are going to take us off course from where we need to be. And that's what I wasn't even really thinking about at that time. And so there's a verse that I'm sure we have all heard before, and it's in 1 Peter 5:8, and it says, control yourselves, be on guard, or stay on guard. Your enemy, the devil, is like a roaring lion. He prowls around looking for someone to chew up and swallow and or devour. So yeah, of course, just like this verse said, and it means so much more to me now after going through that season, and I'm so much more intentional about it, but staying on guard at all times, right? Because you have to deal with crucifying your flesh and your own desires and temptations, and also the temptations that are coming from everything around you and the enemy that's trying to devour you. And if you're familiar with, or at least if you are, or if you're not, a lion always stalks their prey before they attack. If they're whether they're alone, if they're in a pack of people, of other lions, they're always going to stalk their prey for a significant amount of time before they attack. And so even whenever you think that like you're good, everything's fine, and okay, I haven't fell into temptation here, or I haven't said yes to that, I haven't gone out there, like there's always going to be that moment where it strikes, like when you're not even necessarily at your most vulnerable moment, but when you're not like at your like most, like when you're not most aware. When you're not on guard, right? Yeah, like self-aware of like where you're at and things like that. It doesn't have to be like necessarily a moment of vulnerability. Just when you're not paying attention, when you're not giving that intentionality to your faith and to what you stand on and what you believe, is when like those things are gonna happen. And so yeah, that's the first thing I wanted to mention, because that definitely like caught me off guard. So for example, and we're gonna be like mad transparent this episode, per usual, but the first week of college,
talk to me, bro.
So the first week of college, I get there, right? Like I said, I never really, I don't think I ever went to a party before this or did anything like that before I went to college. And so first week, of course, we're going into the first weekend. So we have the first week of classes, things like that, you know, getting acclimated to new environment, meeting new people.
So y'all about to let loose this weekend.
Of course, basically. Essentially. Like, of course. What do you mean? Like, I feel like it's the first weekend, everybody's about to turn up, it's going to be live. Like, what do you mean? And so I was with like my roommate and a few other guys, and this is no knock to them. I love them. They're great people. And so none of them had really like, we were all, I guess, in the same position in terms of like experience. We never really went out or like drank like that. And they had offered, like, I think it was like coming up on the weekend. I think it was either Friday or Thursday or Friday. And they were like, yo, like, you want to like hang out with us this weekend? Like, we're going to be drinking or whatever. We're going to do like they said they were going to do the 5 fingers of death. Now,
dang.
I of course, I had no idea what that meant.
That's what I'm saying.
But I'm just like, well, it's my first weekend of college, right? Like, why not? I thought it was super innocent. I'm like, this one moment of me going out and saying yes here isn't going to lead to anything else in the future, right? Like, I can stop myself. Like, I'm not going to get stuck into this. Let me just like enjoy my life or let loose, right? And entertain my flesh. So I went out with them. And so afterwards I felt so bad. Of course, y'all know the feeling, right? When you fall into some type of temptation, whatever sin it is, you wake up the next morning, you're like, oh, dang, God, bro, it's me again. It's me again, bro. I'm sorry. So I felt so bad, and it was just like, it was not only, of course, like falling itself, but the fact that, dang, this is something I said I'd never do. Right. These are things I told myself coming into it that I wouldn't fall into. I wouldn't let myself like, you know, stray away from. And so I was like, even like in that, like questioning even my character and how solidified I was in that, and like just like questioning all these things. So I mentioned all that and I bring it up and use that example because that was something or a moment And then a few like other moments after that where I saw something that I knew was bad for me as so innocent, right? As so like minuscule of like, okay, this one time isn't going to hurt, right? Crossing this line, crossing this boundary, going against what I know, something I shouldn't be doing or what's not best for me is, oh, it'll be okay. Like it's not going to hurt too much. And like, again, like I said, I lost focus and I wasn't on guard, and that allowed me like just to be open to like anything and everything, and not give me the power to say no to what I know I don't want to do and things that are compromising my character. And so, yeah, that's one of the biggest lessons that I've had to learn, and for other people, is to like, and we're going to more later as we talk, but like just being intentional about like being on guard, like at all times, like not allowing yourself to entertain your flesh, crucifying your desires, and just, you know, being very vigilant of like where you're at in situations and like, you know, what your triggers are or whatever.
Yeah, be on guard. I think for me, a part of that being on guard was just making sure I was in a place where I was just constantly being encouraged and reminded of like who I was and like the path that I had chose. I was reading the other day in 2 Peter, and there's a scripture that stood out to me. It was 2 Peter 1:12. It says, "So I will always remind you of these things, even though you know them and are firmly established in the truth that you now have." And this was Peter talking to a church, and it was like concerning like the works of Jesus and like the prophecy of scripture. And he says he will always remind them of the things, even though they were already firmly established in them and they were already locked in. He told them like, I'm still going to remind you. And I feel like you only remind somebody of something if you know there's a possibility that it's forgotten if you don't. So, I mean, that alone was kind of like very powerful to me in the sense that even when you are locked in, you know what I mean? Even when you do feel good, like you still have to be on guard. Like he's telling me, like, I'm still going to remind you, you know what I mean? And on top of that, I was thinking about like other figures in the Bible that were like known for like staying true. You know what I mean? Because I was just trying to think of some things to say or whatever. And I was thinking about Paul. I'm like, okay, Paul was like, he was really locked in. Like he was known for staying true. Like every town he went to, every synagogue that he talked in, there were people who believed and those who didn't. And there were people who were open-minded and those who refused to be. But like he didn't, in his response, he didn't get upset. He didn't take it to heart. He simply just went to the next town. So like regardless of what people had to say, or if they liked what he said or they didn't, like he was locked in. Like he stood true. So I was like, okay, what was the determining factor of that? Like why was Paul so locked in? And then I noticed that in all of his letters that he wrote, at the beginning of each letter, it says something along the lines of Peter, servant of Christ, or like Peter, not a servant of man, but a servant of Christ. And it was like him introducing himself in these letters. But something that I noticed and that was revealed to me is the fact that that wasn't just him introducing himself, but it was him constantly reminding himself of who he was, even if it was just like subconscious. Like, and understand that Paul used to be Saul, so he's constantly being reminded of his past. Like every courtroom he stepped into, being reminded of who he used to be and what he used to do. He could have easily went to a spiral of like a identity crisis, but he didn't, right? Because he was locked in, and in each one of these letters he was constantly being reminded, I am Paul, a servant of Christ. So for him, it was like a constant reminder and a constant encouragement. And I thought that was so powerful. And I think that's one of the reasons why he was really so locked in. You know what I mean? So you have to ask yourself, okay, what am I putting in front of myself that's constantly reminding me of what God has said, reminding me of his promises, reminding me of who I am. And for Paul, it wasn't even a what, it was who. It was who he was in communication with that was reminding him. Because remember, it was in these letters that he was writing to people that he was constantly like being encouraged, right? So it's like, it's not even just what, but like who are you surrounding yourself with that's going to be constantly encouraging you and reminding you. Because like Darin was talking about, like it's not even just when you're in a down bad or like something bad happens in your life or some tragic events. Like even when you feel locked in and even when you feel up and you wake up on the right side of the bed, you still have to what? Be on guard. So what are you constantly being intentional about, allowing yourself to be exposed to and like, put in front of your face?
Yeah, that's good. Just staying encouraged. Yeah. Well, reminding yourself consistently. So that's a part of like always staying on guard and making sure that, or how you do that practically. And then another thing I wanted to say in terms of like staying true to self and what that looks like is that you have to be real with where you're at, not where you want yourself to be. And that goes along with being self-aware. You have to be real with where you're at, not where you want yourself to be. Yeah. So sometimes you can get in modes like when you're not your best self, when you may be in moments where you may be compromising your character and or doing things that you know you shouldn't be, or goes against what you believe. So yeah, and essentially with that is the fact that like the key to obviously staying true to self is knowing where self is. You have to know where you're at, and sometimes we can idealize our character, right? We can idealize the person that we want to be versus the person that we truly are.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes it's like, okay, this is what I know I believe or want to believe, but like what am I really building my life upon? Like what does the fruit look like in my life with where I'm at and where I'm going? And so, you know, whenever you're getting a moment when you're stepping into, whether it be college or high school, or you're going into an industry or a field, again, constantly staying on guard, encourage yourself, as well as like self-reflection, look in the mirror every day and asking yourself like, yo, where am I at? Checking in with yourself. And in 2 Corinthians 13:5, it says, examine yourselves to see whether you are in the faith. Test yourself. And so I thought that was very profound and played into, you know, exactly the point that I wanted to make. It's just being self-aware is important. That can come through, of course, having people who are reminding you of who you are, not even who you are, but where you're at. And then two, what we've mentioned previously before in other episodes, is just like obviously asking God and the Holy Spirit to reveal that to you as well, right?
Yeah, that's why I think, yeah, that's a good point, because you kind of talked on this earlier, but if you're not being honest with yourself and where you are, you can get and make the mistake of like overestimating your like tolerance to something, or overestimating how like quickly you would give into something.
That's good.
So that's why you got to be real with like, yo, I might think I'm up here, but let's be honest, like I'm right here. I can't go around that friend group because I'm not going to change them. They're going to change me. I can't go out there. So it's like, yeah, for sure. You got to.
That's good. Yeah, because that's exactly what will happen. And people will be like, will really think that they're suited or ready for settings or environments that they have no business being in. Right. Because be like, oh, well, I can be around that. Oh, that one drink, no, I'll be cool.
I'll be good.
Oh, y'all doing that there? I'll be fine. Or y'all out with them? I should be good. But it's just about like, I like that what you were mentioning. It's just like being completely honest and real with yourself, examining where you're at to determine where you need to be and where you need to go.
Exactly.
In different settings, different environments, and dealing with people. And so that's one of the biggest things that I had to do, because I'm a reference a lot about like my time in college personally, because that's one of like the biggest environments that I was in that was really like pulling me in all different directions.
Yeah.
But of course, like apply this to your situation, however you see fit. Yeah, and because like for me personally, really, you know, all through high school, I really didn't do anything. Like I wasn't going out. Like I just stayed in my room, minded mine, like basically like the poster child. And so like going into college, like I think I was more committed to like my perception than my actual like integrity in my character.
Ooh, that's tough.
And I didn't even put that down. And that's another thing. I was more worried, and that's what. But like really took me off the deep end, and I got further and further like away from God, is the fact that I wasn't really worried about my heart. I was just worried about how people were seeing me. So it's like, okay, at some point, it's like, that's why you got to be real with yourself. At some point, it was like I was feeling guilt, but not because it was conviction. It's because, dang, they see me like that now.
Man,
I'm that type of guy.
Right.
I'm that type of person.
Right.
I'm that Christian. And I was more like embarrassed than I was like righteously frustrated with where I was at with my relationship with God and where my character was at in that moment. And so that's a process that I went through. And so, you know, like going around campus and just being in that setting, I was like, oh, well, no, like this is who I am. This is what I built my life upon, is like love and, you know, exempling and is love and being a disciple and being of character that is Christ-like. But that's not what the fruit was.
Right.
That's not what I was really like. That's what I wanted to believe about myself.
You know.
That's what I thought.
Right.
But really looking in the mirror, that's not the person I was actually portraying and being. And so it wasn't really until I had to take a step back, really look in the mirror to see myself for where I was, where I could actually take those steps to getting back to like that person I wanted to be. And so, yeah. Just be real. That's one of the things that I definitely had down. That was good.
No, that's a bar. I think one more thing kind of for me and kind of just staying true is really, and this is honestly a universal thing for believers. It's kind of just like finding a balance or that tug of war between like your social and your personal life. And it's like a question of how do I remain like close enough in proximity with people to be able to like be that light and impact them, but like not too close to the point where I'm like allowing myself to be changed by them, you know. And that also goes back into the staying encouraged thing. But ultimately in Proverbs it talks about how like bad company corrupts good character. So it's like no matter how locked in you really are, if you spend a certain amount of time around a certain amount of people, like it's going to change you in some sort of way. So it's kind of like finding that balance between, okay, how social do I be? How like to myself do I get? And I think with finding that balance, like you might make a mistake. I think it's just one of those things. 'Cause it was the same for me when I was trying to find that balance. And what we were talking about was like I overestimated myself and underestimated the things I was walking into, and I'm trying to figure out this balance. And then it's like, oh dang, like I can't really be as close as I thought I could. You know what I mean? But
it's like kind of like trying to meet people where they're at without coming into their world without like, you know, changing the temperature of your expectation and your faith. And
exactly. Right. And then I remember we were at a Bible study. It was a couple weeks back, and the pastor had said something that was really good, because we always bring up how like Jesus hung around sinners, right, in the Bible and everything. And what he said Jesus didn't hang around sinners hung around him. That's and good. It was like they gravitated towards him and they wanted to be more like him. So maybe a part of finding that balance is not even really pressing the issue all too hard at all. You know what I mean? Really, I think that's what it is. Like letting people come to you in a way.
People are attracted to light.
You know what I mean? So not really pressing it too hard to the point where you'd even be in a situation where you would, you know, make a mistake, or you would, you know what I mean, fall. But like I said, it could happen, but I'm just saying, like, don't get too caught up in that to the point where you're pressing it so hard. And like I said, let people come to you.
Yeah, it can be sometimes, you know, the people just trying to like, and no, not like, cause it's not like inherently wrong. Like I guess not even the cool Christian, but like going to meet people where they're at, like literally in that setting. Like whether it's like, okay, I'm gonna go out with them here, right? Just to be like, you know, just to form relationships or build that bond or whatever, but still finding yourself in environments that like one you're not ready for, or things that can tempt you in ways that like of course are corrupting your character and where you're at.
Right.
And so it's one of those things with like, you know, Jesus sat with sinners but he didn't sin with them. Like how far does that really go, right? You know what I mean? So like, you know, it's like what you think Jesus would be in a strip club, like throwing the ones, you know what I mean? Like because you know some people like use that as their scapegoat or an excuse of like, oh well, I was here, I was with them because, oh well, this is what Jesus would have done. He would have sat with them too. And then like try to gaslight you, like, bro, like, are you judging them? Like, you know what I mean? Like, real talk, like people be weird, like, you know what I mean? And like, but like, you know, there is a fine line, a fine balance of like where you know what environments and settings you know you should be in, and your own triggers and where you're at. And all that,
maybe
right?
Jesus just met him at the lunch table,
right? Maybe they was out for coffee.
Yeah, maybe he wasn't in the club. You know what I mean?
But no, that's a good one, because that's always something that I struggle with, because I'm not a people pleaser. I just like I definitely do like to meet people where they're at. Yeah. I'm a very social person. I like to like understand people for like why they do what they do and where they're at with different things. And so I kind of struggle with that, even like going into college, of like, okay, I really do enjoy spending time with these people, but sometimes they're in like settings and environments at the frat, at the parties that I'm not necessarily into, but I still want to spend quality time with them. Exactly. And try to be that witness. And so I just had to like find that balance of like, you know, just being that light. And then sometimes it just came into like, yo, letting them come into my space. Right. But I think sometimes we always like go to them. Yeah. You know what I mean? Which is important, right? We need to go out, right? But like sometimes you need to like set the temperature of your own environment and let people come into that. And so that's even something I'm learning now, which is still a process for me, but that's something I had to go through. So I thought that was that's really good.
Yeah, no, maybe because I initially said the balance between social and personal life. That's not even really the balance. Maybe the balance is really just like, because we're talking about meeting them where they're at. Maybe the balance is figuring out where at is, like where exactly that's meeting them. That's what the balance is, really. Yeah. So I want to reword that.
Yeah, That makes a lot of sense. I like that. Oh yeah, and also like I mentioned, I would find myself in settings and environments because I wanted to spend time with those people, and I was
Yeah.
out of the fact that okay, I wanted to understand and spend quality time with them, build those relationships. But also, what we talk about
Yeah.
is it was like it was because I was lonely,
Mm. Oh yeah,
you know. And
that's a big one.
you know, one of my favorite things to say is like when you're desperate, you're not picky.
Mm.
And so I think especially one of the things I had down when it comes to staying true to yourself, one of the biggest keys is the fact that at some point you're going to have to be comfortable with spending some time alone.
Yep.
I don't know how long that season is going to look for you,
Mm.
but you're going to have to be comfortable with being alone.
You
And
have to.
sometimes, you know, staying, it was like, dang, weekend after weekend, like I'm just in my dorm room,
Mhm.
not doing anything. It's just like, of course you want that companionship. You want to be social. You want to be around people. You know what I mean? You don't want to just be doing work all the time. You want to be able to
Yeah.
enjoy your life.
Yeah.
And so sometimes that can lead you to, well, there's really no other option.
Mm.
Or at least you thinking that in your head,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like you then like making up all these excuses of to do what you know to go out when you know you shouldn't be or whatever.
Mm.
And so that's another thing. Like you have to be comfortable with like saying no,
Mm.
being able to say no, even if it may leave you by yourself.
That's fire.
And
it.
that's going to be the hardest part of this entire process
Yeah.
is that feeling of loneliness and being alone, especially when you don't feel like there's like strong community. I know that's a whole nother episode. Like people always talk about that a lot. Like it was very difficult to like find friends or
Right.
like people of faith, like, you know, not just Christians, people who are actually walking it out, right? Like not like the cute little FCA group on a college campus. I'm talking about people who are
Right.
like daily in like, you know, in their character showing that they're like Christ, that they desire to have his heart and things of that nature. And so that's one of the biggest things too, because like loneliness will definitely drive you to like a lot of places that you never thought that you'd be in. You know, that's something I had to learn while I was in college because I didn't handle that season well. I didn't know how to navigate it. I didn't know what that looked like. And so like it turned to me just completely like, you know, isolating myself from everybody, right? So a part of that, of course, in terms of staying true to yourself, is having that community of people that are reminding you. But sometimes you get in those modes, like in that setting, in this moment, I'm so lonely that I'm just going to disconnect from everyone. So that's also very important. It's like being comfortable with being alone and learning how in those moments not to just completely isolate yourself. Because that's what I did.
That alone piece got it, bro. It really does. Because I think for sure that's just an important season that I feel like a lot of people need to go through. And I've definitely been in situations where I've tried to bypass that season, and let me know if you can relate. I try to bypass that season. I try to hit God with that. Well, you said it wasn't good that Adam was alone. You know what I'm saying? And like I've definitely gotten into situationships. I've gotten into connections because I was alone. You know what I mean? Like you said, when you're desperate, not picky. But I think you have to understand, like when he said Adam wasn't alone, he gave him Eve, which was someone that was also suitable for him. So you can't try to. That's something I had to learn. You can't try to bypass that alone season by, oh, it's not good that Adam is alone. Well, it's like if you don't have anyone that's suitable, like why are you trying to? You're trying to get into situations that you're not even suitable with that person. Like that's just going to make it worse. You got that. That's the solution to the alone, is getting someone suitable. So maybe you know what I mean.
You know that one trend is like a phase in life I recommend skip. I can't even talk. You know, a phase in life I recommend skipping.
Yo, bro.
And it's that phase.
That is the phase, bro. I promise you.
That's the phase.
It really is, bro.
Don't do it.
You gotta learn how to be alone because it's an important season.
100%. And obviously, like I said, doing that without isolating yourself.
Yeah.
And that goes into making sure that you're finding community, which is kind of outside the scope of this conversation a bit, because that's a lot of questions like, how do I find that? What does that look like?
Yeah.
But just staying connected with people that are going to keep you grounded, no matter if that's just one person.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if it's one person, if it's just your immediate family, staying connected to them. Because you need people who like remind you of who you truly are.
Yes,
like you mentioned earlier,
exactly.
like the truest version of who you are, and then slapping you in the face whenever obviously you don't look like that,
right?
When you're not stepping into that.
And another lesson that God had taught me through like a personal experience I went through is the fact that when you do find yourself in situations where you have conformed and maybe kind of switched up, there's always an opportunity to bounce back to like who you really are, and you don't have to sit in that. So I'm gonna tell a little story time for y'all because this is the.
We said we transparent
Yeah,
with the EP
we being
gang.
transparent in EP. So I'm gonna tell y'all exactly what happened, right? So a lot of my friends that I went to high school with, they go to IU, which is Indiana University. For those of y'all who don't know, it's like 2 hours from here. So when I get a call one day, they're like, yo, you trying to come up to Bloom for the weekend? I'm like, cool, because I went to
Bloom.
You know what I'm saying? I had been there like a couple months prior. That's actually where I got my first tattoo. It was a fun time. I didn't do anything I shouldn't. I was like, cool, okay, it'll be a fun time like it was last time. So I slide, right? Fast forward through that whole day I was there, right? Because it's the night. It's the night where nothing good happens, right? So it's nighttime. We're in the dorm. They're drinking or whatever.
Was this a Saturday?
It's a Saturday.
Okay, yeah, it's one of those for sure. It's a Saturday.
So they're drinking or whatever, just like last time. And I didn't drink or anything, and they know they don't force that on me or anything, because like they're my friends. They know how I'm living. They don't really force that on me. But I'm gonna be so honest with y'all. I had a rough week, bro. Oh. And that's not an excuse, but I'm gonna just be honest. Like I folded under pressure, bro. So I had a rough week. So I'm like, yo, cook me something up, bro.
I just need, bro, so I need something to take the edge off.
I folded because I had a rough week, bro. So and I lost track of like who I was and you know what I mean, what I was doing. So I was like, cool, let me just try this out. Y'all need to know this. I never drunk before this for real. So my friend, he like put some stuff in a bottle. We've been friends for a while, so I wasn't just taking random drinks from random people. Like he would never, you know what I'm saying, put nothing in the bottle.
Jordan got that mystery drink.
So he gave it to me. I'm drinking it. I'm like, oh, cool, whatever. I really don't even know what's in it, bro. So I'm thinking I'm chilling. After I drink this, I'm thinking I'm chilling, like, because we've been sitting down the whole time. We're freestyling, like, we're just talking or whatever. And then we get a call, like, oh, there's a move. Okay, cool. When I get up out my seat, y'all, room was wobbling. I was like, I didn't really know.
Bro, it's not sober-minded. It's not sober-minded.
Bro, I'm gonna be honest, because I never drunk before, so like I drunk too much, and I'm like wobbling. I'm like, dang, bro. Immediately I regret this. I'm like, bro, I didn't think it was this bad, bro. Right. So I stood up and started walking, and the hallways are doing circles. So I'm like, bro, I'm regretting it immediately, bro. And I'm just sitting in that shame. I'm kind of upset with myself. We drive to the spot. It doesn't work out. We end up driving back to the dorms. And okay, so this is what happened, and this is crazy, right? So by this time, I think it had been like an hour and a half or something that kind of passed. And like by this time, like I'm still not like really where I need to be, but I'm like kind of chilled out a little bit. I'm sobered up a little bit, and I'm just sitting in the bed. Like we're about to go to bed at this point. We're laying in the bed, and I don't know how it happened, but one of my homies is sitting on the floor, and he starts talking about life and like like some of the stuff he's going through or whatever, and like how like this life has been really rough. And I don't know why, but I just felt like that was an opportunity. I felt like it was an opportunity to like just give him some advice and just like really talk about God. So like he started talking about that. We have like a whole like hour 30 conversation just talking about life, and they're asking me questions about like my relationship with God, and that was like the end of the night. But like the moral of that story, something that God had taught me through that was like, although I did conform and I did make that mistake, I think a lot of people in that same situation would have kind of been like, man, I already made the mistake. Let me go ahead and sit in this. You know what I mean? Like sometimes we can get that mindset like, man, I already slipped up. Like I might as well just like go all the way, or like, you know, there isn't room for me to bounce back. But I saw the opportunity, and that's something like God had highlighted to me. It's like, even when you do conform and you do make those mistakes, there's always like an opportunity for you to run back to who you really are. You know what I mean? So yeah. And I'm not saying that to try to like, brush by the mistake that I made or whatever, like poking fun at the situation, because like it wasn't fun. Looking back on it was funny, but it wasn't fun.
Yeah, like it's funny now because you know it's it's funny now because like we're far removed from these situations and where we're at. So like we're not condoning this or
that's
laughing.
I want to make sure
like that. And what Jordan's not saying is go get drunk and start talking about God.
I'm not.
You almost didn't say that.
No, I was gonna add that after I was giving my little disclaimer.
That's what he's not saying either. But the analogy is that like even when you have a moment, right? Because like have a moment when you're not yourself,
exactly,
right? When you're not the like, you know, staying true to what you know you believe. Like there's always an opportunity to bounce back. And I like that you mentioned that because I was gonna say that was one of my points is the fact that the biggest thing that I've had to just take from all of this that I've learned is you need to learn lessons and move on. You can't stay stuck in shame and condemnation and crying over spilled milk of like, oh, what if this didn't happen, or I didn't take that, or I said yes to this, or I said no to them. you can't allow yourself to be like just so consumed with, again, like we always talk about the past, that there is no like room for the future and what God wants to get to you or reveal to you in a certain season, right? You're gonna you have to be able to give yourself grace, not excuses, not just pats on the back of like, oh well, I'll do better next time, right? But like true conviction, repentance of turning away, disciplining yourself, but also just not allowing yourself to stay there. You have to learn these lessons from when you may make mistake and or fall and move on, because it will keep you like that shame. I'm telling you, like that's why college was one of like the most like, I guess, like, I don't know, it's crazy, like the most depressing and roughest parts of my life, and also the most transformative, because it was the fact that I had made all these mistakes. And it was funny, like, okay, so I make these mistakes.
Yeah.
So, because we all know the cycle, right? So you sin, and then automatically, or at times, you may get into like shame and condemnation, right? And you get away from the throne of God. It keeps you away from God, because you're so ashamed. You're like, no, I could never be forgiven. I mean, I've done this too many times. There's no room for repentance. And so you reject God's love, when God's love is the only thing that can bring you back to where you need to be. Then it's a continuous cycle. So like you then get further away from God, and they get further into sin, because you don't go to the one that can help you fight it.
That's a bar.
And so that's why that process was so long for me, because I found myself in like deeper situations that I shouldn't have been in, but could have been resolved if I just had learned the lesson and moved on. Right? It's like my pastor called it one time a righteous like depression.
Yeah.
So to, like get out of your own head, like, you know what I mean? Like God's already forgiving you. Like it's time now to forgive yourself. And sometimes, like, again, sometimes it's just, we just feel like it's too good to be true, and it is. But it really is. But it's true. And so we just need to hang on to that truth of His grace and His love and His forgiveness. Go, like, you know, not abuse it, take it for granted, but latch on to that so we can move on and get the power to get through whatever we had like fallen into, you know?
Yeah. And even deeper than that, I think something else I learned from that story is like when you get caught in that shame and that guilt and don't run back to God in those moments, I think you can even miss out on certain opportunities to like be a light. You know what I mean? Because
that's
what I'm saying. Because I forgot to mention this. Something I found out it was like 2 days after this had happened, and I had this talk with this guy. My other friend that was like pretty close with him was telling me like how he had really been going through it. Like, I'm not gonna air out his business, you know what I mean, or say anything, but like he had really been going through it, and I like genuinely think he needed that talk and that conversation I had with him. But like, imagine if in that moment I was just like, I decided to like really just beat myself up over it and like get like you're talking about, just staying stuck in that guilt and that shame. I felt like I would have missed out on having that conversation. I honestly feel like it was really important. So that's another thing you can miss out on, and why you have to run back to God in those moments, because there's other people that are counting on that. So
100%. Yeah, you'll definitely miss those opportunities for sure. Like, okay, you have to resolve within yourself that He still loves you, and He still wants to use you.
That's the one.
He's forgiven you and still wants to show Himself through you. Right? I think we can get to the point of like forgiveness and grace for my sin, but then we have this really deep feeling of inadequacy, self-doubt, and like just persecution toward ourselves, our own abilities, the gifts God's given us, and the opportunities He's presented in front of us because of our past and what we've done. He still wants to use you.
He does.
And so that's another thing about that, even that time in my life, is the fact that there were so many opportunities I missed because like I just felt inadequate,
right?
You know, not knowing that even through that there was still something He wanted to like get through me and use. So
that's a bar.
That's good. Yeah, one of the other points that I had that I want to mention real quick was integrity, and I think we've really touched on it already, but it's the fact that everything will always come to the light. It will always come to the light. It's more important about like who you are off camera, right? Behind the lights, outside the social settings and the scenes. It's about like your daily habits and your disciplines in which you're feeding yourself like day to day. That's going to like determine who you really are and how you're walking out your life. And I don't think we like really underestimate that all the time. And that's one of the biggest parts of staying true to yourself. It's still staying true to your values when no one is looking, right? Because no one knows your heart.
Yeah.
And I mean that because we've, of course, a lot of people have probably heard integrity before, like, it's who you are when no one's looking and all that. But what I mean is, like, it's your intention, it's your heart, right? So, like, you know what I mean? You may be like out somewhere, right? And like you may have a thought, right, of like, whether that be like, let's just say like lust or something like that. That's an easy example.
Yeah.
No one's gonna know that that's something that's in your mind, right? Or a thought that, like, not necessarily the thought, like just passing, a thought that you're sitting on, right? That you're pondering over, that you're allowing to like sit. No one's gonna know that,
They aren't.
right? So integrity is, right, staying true to my beliefs regardless of what other people have to say about me. Like I mentioned earlier, one of my biggest issues is the fact that it was more about what they're going to say. This is between me and God. It has to be, it goes down to like, which holds more weight.
Yeah.
It's got to be, I want my character, who I am, the thoughts that I have, the intentions and desires to match his, and to be upright and righteous to him, right? And for his well done, right? Every day. And like, how I'm living my life, that his well done is what I'm seeking. And I can look at like my life and where I'm at and know that he's like, and know that I'm reflecting who he is and the character of the person I need to be. It has to come down to very personal decision and personal desire for that to be what you want.
Yeah.
And not have to do with anyone else. Because I know that's a part of it that's not always mentioned when it comes to like just staying 10 toes and true to yourself. But it's that integrity piece that's huge. So it's just all about your own personal devotion and like allegiance to you. And making sure that that's a priority as well.
That's tough.
Yeah. And there's a verse associated with that. It's Proverbs 11:3. It says, the integrity of the upright guides them, but the crookedness of the treacherous destroys them. The integrity of the upright guides them. Integrity is the guide.
Yeah.
That's what it's the guiding force. It's what keeps everything moving. It's what keeps you on track. That's what a guide does. It keeps you. The integrity keeps you on the narrow path.
Right.
That stood out to me, and I wanted to mention that too, because that's, like I mentioned not too long ago, that's one of the biggest issues that I have with it. But that's definitely the one. No, yeah, but you got anything else? You got no, yeah. So you got. I'm tripping. I was too hyped.
That energy switch was crazy.
That's
bro.
nuts. That's too nuts. That's crazy. Oh man. No, yeah. So you got anything else for the people though? Any last remarks? I went through all my points. I think
I want to reiterate. It's really something that you said that I thought was really good. So obviously, like we were talking about earlier, just staying encouraged. Make sure you're constantly reminding yourself of, who you are and whose you are, but also staying true to yourself, because we're not trying to stay true to others' perceptions of us. We're trying to stay true to who we are. So being honest with yourself and where you are, and not trying to chase how other people see you, but how you see yourself, how God sees yourself, who you really are. So I thought that was a really fire point you made. That's kind of what I lead the people off with.
Yeah, I like that. That's really good. Yeah, and like, yeah, I mean, that's the same thing. It's like you just got to be real. You got to be brutally honest with like where you're at all times, and take the necessary steps of knowing where like. And taking the necessary steps of like, learning like the power of no, and creating those boundaries and setting those things for your life, so you're not finding yourself in situations that are going to lead you down like different paths or different whatever. Yeah, and just integrity. Like, what's it look like when they're not there? What does it look like when they're not there?
What's it look like?
And so that's the biggest thing. It's 1v1.
1v1.
It's 1v1. It's you versus you. So yeah, man. That's all I got though.
Yeah, that's all I got too. That's all the lessons, you know what I'm saying?
That's it.
That's
all right.
my wisdom.
Now look, I'm glad we got to the episode though. That was a long time coming.
Yeah, for sure. We needed to talk about that.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I hope this helped y'all. Bless y'all. But y'all know what it is. Stay you.
Stay real.
And stay humble. We'll catch y'all next week. Much love.